The night was dark on the broken planet. No stars shined in the sky, only black clouds moving like smoke. Commander Rylan walked slowly across the ruined land. His boots pressed on sharp rocks and cold dust. Every step made a small sound, but the world around him stayed silent. Too silent. The wreck of a great ship lay before him. It was not human. Its metal was curved, smooth, and glowing faintly in places. The ship looked like a silver beast that had fallen from the sky. Fires still burned in small holes, and strange blue smoke rose upward. Rylan stopped for a moment, looking at it with narrow eyes. He whispered to himself, "Not human design. Alien, but why here?" He checked his scanner. No life signs, only static. The device buzzed, broken by interference. He frowned and placed it back on his belt. Something was wrong here. His orders were simple: explore, report, and return. But he felt a pull inside, telling him to go deeper. Rylan moved into the wreckage. The walls were twisted, melted by heat. Sparks jumped from broken wires. His flashlight cut through the smoke, showing shadows that looked like moving shapes, but they disappeared when he came close. His heart beat faster. He had fought many battles in space, but silence like this was worse than any gunfire. Then he heard it. A faint sound. A soft cry. He stopped and turned his head. The sound was weak, almost lost under the crackling fires. It came from deeper inside the ship. Rylan gripped his blaster and walked slowly toward it. The cry came again, this time a little stronger. It was not human. High-pitched, trembling, filled with fear. He found a small door half buried under broken metal. With effort, he pushed the debris aside. The door opened into a narrow chamber. Inside was an escape pod, its glass cracked, its lights flickering, and inside the pod was a girl. She looked young, maybe 16 in human years, but her features were not human. Her skin was pale with a faint glow like moonlight. Her hair was long and silver, falling over her face. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. She looked fragile, as if the smallest touch could break her. Rylan's breath caught in his chest. An alien child? No, not exactly. Something about her face felt strangely familiar. He stepped closer, lowering his blaster. Then her eyes opened. Silver eyes, bright, clear, and filled with fear. They looked directly at him. For a long moment, neither moved. Her lips parted. She spoke a single word in a soft, shaking voice. The sound was strange, like music mixed with language. Rylan froze. He should not have understood it, but somehow he did. The word echoed in his mind, clear as his own tongue. Protector? His hands trembled. How could he understand her? No translator, no device, yet her voice reached inside his mind. The girl tried to move, but pain forced her back down. Her hand lifted weakly, pressing against the glass of the pod. She looked at him with eyes full of desperate trust, as if she had known him forever. Rylan felt the weight of his orders again. His commanders had been clear. If contact with these aliens ever happened, humans must not interfere. They had called them dangerous, a threat to humanity. But here she was, a fragile girl, not a monster. His heart raced. The ship groaned around him, metal twisting as if the wreck would soon collapse.
He knew he had only seconds to choose.
Walk away and follow his orders, or break every rule and save her. The girl whispered again, weaker this time. Protect her. Rylan's jaw tightened. His duty to the fleet was heavy, but the look in her eyes was heavier. It was not the look of an enemy. It was the look of someone who had nothing left, someone begging for life. He smashed the pod's lock with the butt of his blaster. Sparks flew and the glass slid open with a hiss of steam. He reached inside and lifted her carefully. She was light, far too light, like she had not eaten for days. Her head rested against his chest, and for the first time in many years, Rylan felt something stir inside him. Not fear, not duty. Something else. The wreck shook violently. The fires roared higher. He carried her out, moving fast across the broken ground. Behind him, the alien ship gave a final scream of tearing metal and collapsed into the dust. Rylan stopped at the edge of the field. He looked down at the girl in his arms. She was already unconscious again, but her hand clutched his uniform tightly as if refusing to let go. His mind was a storm of questions. Why did she call him protector? Why could he understand her words? And why did her face feel so familiar? The wind blew across the dead land, cold and sharp. Rylan stared into the darkness, holding the alien girl close. He had saved her, but deep inside he knew this was only the beginning. The secret she carried was waiting for him. Rylan moved quickly through the dark valleys, the alien girl held tightly in his arms. The wind blew sharp and cold, carrying dust across the dead land. Every shadow looked like an enemy. Every sound made him grip his blaster harder. His base was not far, hidden inside an abandoned mining outpost, but tonight the distance felt endless. The girl stirred once, whispering in her strange voice, but he could not understand this time. Only the first word, the one that had struck his heart, remained clear in his mind. Protector. The old outpost stood silent against the rocks, its walls cracked, its towers broken. Long ago, humans had mined here searching for rare metals. Now only ghosts remained, and Rylan used it as a shelter between missions. The doors opened with a rusty groan when he keyed in the code. Inside, the air smelled of dust and oil, but it was safe. He placed the girl gently on a cot in the small medical room, then hurried to power up the old machines. Lights flickered to life. The scanner hummed. Rylan sat beside her and checked her wounds. Strange burns covered her arms, glowing faintly blue. His med kit hissed as it sprayed healing foam, but the foam melted away, unable to stay on her skin. He cursed softly under his breath. Her body resisted human medicine. Still, he did not stop. He washed her wounds with clean water, covered them with soft cloth, and gave her drops of water from a small tube. The girl's silver eyes opened slowly. For a moment she looked afraid, but then her gaze softened when she saw him. She whispered again, weakly, in her own tongue. The words made no sense, yet somehow the meaning reached him. He heard it not with his ears, but with his mind. Safe, Protector. Safe. Rylan sat back, breathing hard. He was a soldier, not a savior. He had fought aliens before, killed them without question. Yet here he was, tending to one as if she were a child lost in war. His chest tightened with confusion. She tried to sit up, but pain forced her down. Her hand moved to the small pendant around her neck. The chain was broken, the metal cracked, but the symbol carved on it made Rylan freeze. It was sharp, familiar, impossible to ignore. He leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. It was not alien at all. It was human. A mark from a secret military division, one he had served under years ago. The Silent Wing, known only to the highest ranks. He had seen this symbol burned into weapons, carved into hidden labs, stamped onto files no soldier was ever allowed to speak of. Yet now it was here, hanging around the neck of an alien girl. How? Rylan whispered almost to himself. His voice trembled, though he tried to hide it. Where did you get this? The girl looked at him with tired eyes. She did not answer, or maybe she could not. But the way she touched the pendant told him it was important, maybe the most important thing she carried. Rylan stood and paced across the room. His orders echoed in his mind again. Do not trust them. Do not help them. But his heart pushed back. He had seen fear in her eyes, not hatred. He had seen weakness, not power. She was no enemy soldier. She was lost, broken, and somehow connected to him. Hours passed. Rylan kept watch, checking her breathing, listening for any sounds outside the outpost. Once he thought he heard movement, a low hum, but when he checked the scanners, nothing appeared. Still, his gut told him danger was near. Whoever destroyed her ship might still be hunting her. At last the girl slept, her chest rising slowly, her hand still clutching his sleeve as if afraid he would vanish. Rylan sat beside her, staring at the pendant again. Memories came back uninvited. Memories of missions where strange orders were given, where his DNA had been taken for records, where he had seen scientists whispering behind locked doors. He pushed the thoughts away, but they burned at the back of his mind. He looked at the girl once more. Her silver eyes haunted him even in sleep. Who was she? Why did she call him Protector? And why did she carry a human military mark? Rylan clenched his fists. He had promised himself long ago never to question orders, never to dig into secrets that could destroy him. But this girl had already cracked his shield of duty. Saving her had been the first break. Now every breath she took in his shelter pulled him deeper into a mystery he might not survive. The wind outside howled like a warning. The monitors beeped softly, showing nothing. But Rylan knew the peace would not last. Someone would come looking for her, someone powerful. And when they came, the truth would follow. For now he kept his weapon close, his eyes open and his secret fear locked inside. He had rescued her, but what he carried in his heart was heavier than the girl herself. The knowledge that she was tied to a part of his past he had never dared face. The night was long inside the outpost. Ryland did not sleep. He sat on a chair near the cot, his blaster resting on the table, his eyes fixed on the alien girl. She looked calm in sleep, her face soft, almost human, yet touched with something otherworldly. The silver glow of her skin caught the dim light, making her seem like a star trapped in darkness. Every time he looked away, he found his gaze pulled back to her, as if his mind refused to forget she was there. When morning came, though on this dead planet morning only meant the clouds grew lighter, Ryland rose and prepared food. He had little left: ration packs, water tubes, and a few pieces of dried fruit from his last supply drop. He chewed slowly, his eyes never leaving the girl. When she stirred, he walked over, offering a small piece of fruit. She looked at it with confusion, then at him. "Eat," Ryland said, his voice rough from silence. She blinked, her lips parted, whispering a sound in her own tongue. He could not understand the word, but her tone was soft, curious. She hesitated, then reached out with trembling fingers. She took the fruit, biting carefully. Her eyes widened at the taste, and for the first time Ryland saw the edge of a smile. It was faint, almost hidden, but it was there. Something shifted inside him. She whispered again, this time clearer, and though her language was strange, Ryland felt the meaning press into his mind. "Thank you." Ryland looked away quickly, pretending to check the scanner. His chest tightened. He had killed aliens before without thought, but this one was different. She was not a soldier. She was just a girl, weak and lost. The way she looked at him with trust, not fear, was harder to face than any enemy weapon. Hours passed slowly. Ryland worked on repairing his damaged comm unit while the girl watched from the cot. Sometimes she would point at things, asking in her language. He answered in short words, tapping his chest. "Human, Ryland." Then he pointed at her. She paused, then pressed her hand to her chest. Alira, her name. Simple, soft, flowing like water. Ryland repeated it. "Alira." She smiled faintly again, and this time the smile stayed a little longer. As the day went on, they found small ways to understand each other. When she was thirsty, she mimed drinking. When she wanted to walk, she touched her legs and pointed. Ryland helped her stand, supporting her weight. She was light, fragile, but each step she took seemed to make her stronger. They moved slowly through the outpost, and she looked around with wide silver eyes, touching the walls, the broken screens, the dust-covered machines. Everything seemed new to her, but there was something else too. Fear. Sometimes, for no reason, her body would tense. Her eyes would dart to the door as if expecting someone to burst in. Once, when the wind outside howled through the broken vents, she grabbed his arm tightly, whispering words filled with panic. Ryland tried to calm her, speaking softly, though he knew she barely understood. Still, she clung to him until the sound faded. Later, when she rested again, Ryland noticed her pendant glowing faintly. The human symbol burned in his mind. He could not escape the question, how did she have it? And why did she call him protector the first moment she saw him? That night, as the dim lights flickered in the outpost, Ryland found himself staring at her again. She lay asleep, her breathing steady now, her hand curled around the pendant. She looked peaceful, almost normal, as if she belonged here beside him. He hated the thought that crossed his mind, but he could not stop it. She reminds me of family. A family he had lost long ago, before the wars, before the endless orders and battles. He had buried those feelings, locked them away. Yet here she was, pulling them back with every glance, every word. Ryland leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. His orders screamed in his memory, "Do not trust them. Do not save them. They are not your kind." But Alira's soft voice echoed louder. "Protector." A storm brewed inside him. Was he betraying his people by helping her? Or was he betraying himself by turning away from her trust? He did not know the answer. Not yet. But one thing was certain. A bond was forming between them, fragile yet unbreakable. It was not built on language or history or orders. It was built on something far older, something simple. Two beings alone in the universe, choosing not to be alone anymore. And deep inside, Ryland knew this bond would be tested soon. The world outside was not silent out of mercy. It was silent because something was waiting. The night air inside the outpost grew heavy. Ryland could feel it, a pressure pressing down on his chest, a warning that something was wrong. The scanner showed nothing, but his instincts told him otherwise. Soldiers learned to trust their gut, and his gut screamed danger. Alira was awake now, sitting on the cot, her silver eyes filled with unease. She kept glancing at the door, her small hands tightening around the broken pendant. Rylan moved to the control panel, checking the monitors again. Static covered the screens. No signals, no movement. Still, he could not shake the feeling. Then he heard it, a low hum outside, mechanical, cold, the kind of sound that did not belong to the wind. His hand shot to his blaster. Alira gasped, her voice rising in panic. She spoke fast in her language, her words sharp and broken. But Rylan felt the meaning. They found me. They found us. Before he could ask who they were, the walls shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. A red light blinked on the panel. Intrusion detected. Rylan cursed under his breath, pulling Alira to her feet. Stay close. Don't move unless I say. The outer doors cracked. The sound was like claws tearing metal apart. Then they came. Dark drones, shaped like spiders of steel, crawled through the opening. Their eyes glowed red, scanning the room with cold precision. Blades unfolded from their sides, humming with deadly energy. Rylan fired first. Blue bolts cut through the darkness, striking one drone and sending it crashing into the wall. Sparks exploded. Another leaped forward, its blade slashing at him. He rolled to the side, firing again. The shot burned a hole straight through its body, but more crawled in behind it, their red eyes glowing brighter. Alira screamed and stumbled back. The drones turned toward her, their scanners locking onto her glowing skin. She froze, paralyzed by fear. Rylan ran across the room, blasting one drone before it reached her. Its metal body shattered, pieces skidding across the floor. Move, Rylan shouted, though he knew she barely understood. He grabbed her arm, pulling her behind him as another drone fired a beam of searing light. The beam cut through the wall, leaving a black scar. Rylan pushed Alira down and fired back, hitting the drone in its eye. It shrieked in static and fell dead. But more kept coming. They moved like hunters, circling, calculating. One jumped onto the ceiling, crawling upside down before dropping toward Rylan. He spun, firing in mid-turn. The blast caught it, but the explosion threw him back. Pain shot through his shoulder as he hit the wall. His blaster skidded across the floor. The drone crawled closer, blades ready to strike. Rylan reached for his weapon, but it was too far. Then a light flashed. Alira, trembling but determined, lifted a broken metal rod from the floor and swung it with all her strength. The rod struck the drone's head, sending sparks flying. It faltered for a second, just long enough for Rylan to snatch his blaster and finish it with a shot. He looked at her in shock. She had saved him. But Alira's face was pale, her eyes wide with terror. No more, she whispered in his mind, her voice shaking. If they see me, more will come. They will never stop. Rylan's breath came heavy. He scanned the room. The surviving drones were pulling back, retreating toward the torn doors. But they were not fleeing in fear. They were transmitting. He could see the red flashes on their bodies, pulsing like beacons. They were calling reinforcements. Alira collapsed to her knees, covering her face. Destroy me, she whispered in his mind. The words hit him like a knife. If I live, they will never stop. They will find you. They will kill you. Rylan knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders.
No, he said firmly, his voice hard as steel.
You're not dying here. Not while I breathe. Her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head, whispering again. Protect her. They want me, not you. If you keep me, you will fall with me. Rylan looked at the door. The last drone crawled out into the night, its beacon still flashing. The sky above the outpost lit faintly with red signals. They were coming. A full swarm. Maybe worse. He tightened his grip on Alira's shoulders. Then let them come, he said, his voice low but unshaken. I've fought worse, and if they want you, they'll have to go through me first. The wind outside roared louder, carrying the sound of machines gathering in the distance. Alira buried her face against him, trembling. Rylan held her close, his eyes fixed on the black horizon. He did not know who was hunting her or why, but one thing was clear. This was no longer about orders or missions or duty. This was war, and he had already chosen his side. The outpost was quiet again, but it was not peace. The silence after the drone attack felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. Smoke drifted through the broken doors, the smell of burned metal still sharp in the air. Rylan moved slowly, checking the scanners, sealing off damaged walls and gathering weapons. His shoulder ached from the fight, but he ignored it. Pain was nothing new. What haunted him was the look in Alira's eyes when she begged him to end her life. She sat on the cot, her hands gripping her pendant tightly, her face pale. She had not spoken since the drones left. Her silver eyes were full of shadows, as if she was carrying a truth too heavy to share. Rylan studied her, his chest tight. He needed answers. He could not protect her if he didn't know what hunted her or why. Finally, he sat across from her, resting his blaster on the table. His voice was low, calm but firm. "Alira, who are they? Why are they chasing you?" She looked at him for a long time, her lips trembling. At last she spoke, her words in her strange language, but Rylan understood. The meaning cut straight into his mind like a blade. "They want what I am. They want what is inside me." Rylan frowned. "Inside you?" She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. Her hands moved to her chest, pressing against her heart. "I am the last of my kind. My people, gone, destroyed by humans." The words hit him harder than any weapon. He leaned back, his fists clenching. He had fought in wars, but he had never been told this. Humanity had spoken of victories against aggressors, of battles against alien threats. They had never said anything about wiping out an entire race. Alira's voice shook as she continued. "They did not only destroy us, they experimented. They changed us, they made me." Rylan's heart pounded. His mind flashed back to the pendant she wore. The human symbol burned into his memory. Silent Wing, the division of secrets, the one he had served without question. He remembered dark labs, whispers in corridors, orders that made no sense. He remembered blood tests, DNA scans. He remembered signing documents that said, "For Earth survival." And suddenly he understood. His voice cracked as he asked, "What did they make you with, Alira?" She looked at him, her silver eyes filled with sorrow. Slowly she reached out and touched his chest right over his heart. Her voice entered his mind, soft but unshakable. "You." The room spun around Rylan. He stared at her in disbelief, his breath caught in his throat. "No, that's not possible." Her tears slid down her glowing skin. "Your blood, your life. They used it to create me. I am part of you, and part of them. A weapon born from human hands. That is why they hunt me. That is why they will never stop." Rylan felt as if the ground had vanished beneath him. His hands trembled. Memories crashed back. The medical tests during his time in Silent Wing. The times they had drawn his blood without reason. The secret missions where he never saw the full picture. He had ignored the questions back then, burying them under loyalty. Now the answers were sitting in front of him, alive, breathing, calling him protector. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to shout that she was lying, that this was some alien trick. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw the truth. The connection he felt from the moment he found her was real. She was part of him. Alira lowered her gaze, her voice breaking. "Do you see now? Why I asked you to let me die? If they take me, they take you. They take everything. I am not meant to live. I am their secret. Their crime." Rylan leaned forward, grabbing her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. His voice shook with anger, but not at her. At the people who had created this nightmare. "No, listen to me. You are not a crime. You are not a weapon. You're alive. That means you have a choice. And as long as I breathe, no one takes that away from you." Her lips parted, her eyes wide with shock. No one had ever spoken to her like that. For a moment her tears slowed and her trembling stopped. Rylan let out a heavy breath, his mind racing. The truth was out. He was connected to her by blood, by secret experiments he had never agreed to. She was part human, part alien, the last of her kind and the most wanted being in the galaxy. Outside, the horizon glowed faint red as enemy signals drew closer. The swarm was coming. Rylan stood, loading his blaster, his voice cold and sharp. They want their weapon back, but they forgot one thing. He looked down at Alira, who clutched her pendant tightly, waiting for his words. They forgot she has someone willing to fight for her. The fire outside had faded, but the outpost felt colder than ever. Rylan sat alone at the table, his blaster by his side, his head bowed low. Alira slept on the cot, her pendant glowing faintly against her chest. She looked peaceful in her dreams, but Ryland's mind was far from peace. His heart was heavy with truths he had buried long ago, truths he had sworn never to face. He remembered Silent Wing, the division that never appeared in the public records. He remembered how they took him in after his first missions, how they praised his loyalty, his strength, his discipline. He had been proud then. A good soldier. A perfect soldier. He followed orders without hesitation, without doubt. He thought it was for Earth, for survival. But then came the tests, blood drawn without reason, DNA samples taken again and again. Routine, they called it. He never asked questions. He thought it was nothing. But deep inside, he had felt something was wrong. He had chosen silence over truth, and now the result of his silence lay sleeping in front of him. Alira was his creation, not by choice, not by love, but by the theft of his life. She carried his blood. She carried his face in her own strange reflection. She was his daughter in a way too cruel to imagine. And worse, she was hunted because of it. Ryland pressed his hands against his face, his breath shaking. For the first time in years, he felt shame. A soldier's duty was to protect, but he had been blind while others turned his body into a weapon factory. He had obeyed while they murdered her people. His silence had given birth to her suffering. Alira stirred in her sleep. Her voice whispered softly in his mind, fragments of dreams. "Protect her, safe. Don't leave me." Ryland's chest tightened. She trusted him without question. She believed in him as if it was written into her very soul. She did not see the guilt, the shame, the betrayal he carried. She only saw safety in his shadow. He rose slowly, walking to the small mirror on the wall. His reflection looked back. Hard eyes, scarred skin, the face of a soldier who had lost too much. For the first time, he hated what he saw. That face was in her too. She was his mirror, and he could not escape it. He clenched his fists. I cannot let her know, not yet. The truth would break her. She already carried too much pain. If she discovered that the man she trusted, the man she called protector, was the source of her blood, she would never look at him the same way again. But secrets rot when buried. He knew one day it would come out. He would have to face it. Until then, he would carry the weight alone. Hours passed. Ryland repaired his rifle, fortified the doors, checked the scanners again and again. All the while, the secret burned in his chest like fire. He told himself it didn't matter who made her, what experiments built her. What mattered now was keeping her alive. That was his mission. That was his penance. When Alira woke, her silver eyes met his, soft but filled with questions. She sat up slowly, her voice trembling. "Why do you help me, Ryland? Why do you risk your life for me?" He froze. The truth nearly spilled from his lips. "Because you are mine." But he forced the words down, locking them deep inside. Instead, he said, "Because you deserve to live." She looked at him for a long time, as if searching for something hidden. Then she smiled faintly and whispered, "Protector." The word cut him in half. Protector. Yes, that was what she saw. Not the guilty soldier. Not the man whose blood had been stolen. She saw only the one who stood between her and death. Ryland sat beside her, his voice low. "Alira, listen. They will come again, stronger, faster. They will not stop. They will tear this world apart to find you. But I won't let them." She touched his hand lightly, her voice barely a whisper. "If they take me, you die too. Our blood is the same, I feel it. We are bound." Ryland's heart stopped for a beat. She already felt the truth, even if she didn't fully know it. Their bond was deeper than she realized. He squeezed her hand gently, his eyes fierce. "Then I'll fight twice as hard for you. For both of us." Outside, the night sky lit with faint red lights, scouts circling above, preparing for the next strike. The storm was coming closer. Ryland turned his gaze to the horizon, his face hard. Inside him, two voices battled. One whispered guilt, shame, and the weight of his past. The other whispered duty, redemption, and the promise he had just made. He did not know which voice would win in the end. But for now, the secret he guarded stayed locked in his chest even as it tore him apart. sky above the outpost burned red. Dozens of signals blinked in the clouds, spreading like a net of fire. Rylan stood at the doorway, his rifle tight in his hands, his body tense like a drawn bow. The scanners screamed with warnings. Ships were coming. Not drones this time. Something larger. Something worse. Behind him, Alira sat on the cot, her face pale but her eyes steady. She clutched her pendant tightly, as if the cracked piece of metal could protect her. She did not speak, but her silence said everything. She knew what was coming. The ground shook. Engines thundered from the sky. A fleet of black ships broke through the clouds, their shadows falling across the outpost like giant blades. Rylan's jaw clenched. This was no small strike team. This was a capture mission. They had come for her. A voice crackled over the comms, cold and sharp. "Commander Rylan, you have something that belongs to us. Surrender the hybrid. Stand down and you will live." Rylan froze. They knew his name. They knew him. Silent Wing had sent them. His own people. His own command. He turned back to Alira. She stared at him, her silver eyes wide. "Your people," she whispered into his mind. "It is you they serve." Rylan's chest burned. She was right. These were not strangers. These were his brothers in arms, the soldiers he had once trusted. And now they wanted her. Another message cut through the air. "Do not resist, Commander. This is your final order. Bring her out." Rylan's hands shook. His past and present crashed together. All his life he had obeyed orders without question. Orders gave him purpose. Orders gave him survival. But this order would kill her. It would kill the only bond he had left in the universe. He looked at Alira. She clutched his sleeve, her voice trembling. "Protect her, please. Do not give me to them. I would rather die than be their weapon." The weight of her words crushed him. She was his blood, his creation, his unintended child. He had guarded the secret all this time, hiding his shame, but now the choice stood in front of him like a blade. Betray her to save himself, or fight his own people and lose everything. The ground split as soldiers landed outside, their armor glowing in the red light. Dozens, maybe hundreds. They surrounded the outpost, weapons ready. A commander's voice boomed again. "Step aside, Rylan. She is property of Earth. You know what she is." Rylan's heart thundered. Yes, he knew what she was. She was not property. She was not a weapon. She was Alira. She was his. He turned to her, his eyes fierce. "Stay behind me." She shook her head, tears falling. "You will die." Rylan gave a grim smile. "Maybe, but I'll die protecting you. And that's better than living as their slave." The door burst open. Soldiers stormed in, rifles raised. Rylan opened fire. The room exploded with light and sound. Armor cracked under his blasts, bodies fell, but more poured in. He fought like a man possessed, his rage and guilt fueling every shot. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a father, a protector, and a man who had chosen his own path. Alira cried out as beams of energy ripped through the room. One soldier aimed at her, but Rylan threw himself in front of the blast, taking it in his shoulder. Pain ripped through him, but he stayed on his feet, firing back until the soldier fell. The fight raged. The outpost burned, the air filled with smoke and screams. Alira stood frozen, her pendant glowing brighter, reacting to her fear. Energy pulsed around her, waves of light pushing back the soldiers. She was awakening, power not from them but from within herself. Rylan turned, seeing her glow. For the first time he understood. She was not just his burden. She was not just his secret. She was hope. A new kind of life, one that could not be controlled. The commander outside shouted through the comms. "Enough, Rylan. You cannot win. Surrender her, or we will burn this world to ash." Rylan's breath came heavy, his body broken and bleeding. He looked at Alira, then back at the soldiers storming in. His choice was clear. He raised his rifle, his voice cold and final. "Then burn it. But you'll never take her." Alira's power erupted, a wave of silver light blasting through the outpost. The soldiers screamed as their weapons shattered, their armor torn apart. The ships in the sky trembled, systems failing under the surge. Rylan fell to his knees, watching in awe. She was more than human, more than alien. She was something new. She was free. The light faded, leaving silence. The ships pulled back, retreating into the clouds. The ground was littered with broken metal and fallen enemies. The battle was over. For now. Alira knelt beside him, her hands glowing faint as she touched his wounds. Her voice was soft, filled with sorrow. Protector? You gave everything for me. Rylan smiled weakly, blood on his lips. That's what fathers do. Her eyes widened, tears falling. She finally understood the truth he had hidden. She was not alone. She had family. Rylan's vision